Hello and good day. It's that time again where we carry on looking into a topic once a week, and this month it has been the input system in Unreal Engine. And we had a really useful stream on Wednesday. It's normally Sundays I did it, but last Sunday I didn't stream, so we did it Wednesday instead. And yeah, we've been looking at the way that the input components, and essentially Unreal has a stack of different input layers that will process and sometimes consume input, consuming meaning that it will stop that input being processed by anything else that's listening out for input. So we did a bit of experimentation and learning about that, and we set some points for us to do next stream, and that's what we're going to be doing today. Good morning, or good afternoon I should say, sorry to you, Joe Hugh. So what we're looking to pick up is we learned essentially, a very quick summary would be that most of the input, or all of the input at least we've looked at so far, is routed via the player controller. So each player, when they join, they get a player controller issued to them. If you're not doing a split screen, there'll just be the one player controller for you, and that player controller exists throughout. When you're in a map, you'll be given a player controller. So if you're going from like one scene to the next, like from your title screen into your main level, then I think you have a different player controller for those because there's a different game mode per level. I believe the game instance is static between levels, but the player controller isn't. So the player controller is pretty much there throughout a game session within a map, at least. If you think of it throughout if you're playing a game and you live and you die and you get respawned, that sort of logic, it'll be the one same player controller you have throughout. Now that player controller will have access to a input component, but it does not do it via, there's actually a component called the player input component, which lives on that player controller. And what that player input component does is stores an array essentially, or they treats it like a stack of input components. And those input components have a bunch of bindings set up on them saying, if this key, when this is pressed, I'm binding it to call this function. And so it'll have a bunch of rules set up on it based on what has been set up on it. And that player input component will then store all of these in a list. And what happens on every frame then, when it processes input on the player controller will call into this and it'll say, hey, what should I be doing based on my current input? So first off, it queries, okay, what is being pressed? It collects information about what keys are being pressed. And then it'll go down through this input stack and it'll say, okay, on the top priority one, anything that's been pressed, is there a mapping for it? If there is, it'll perform it. If it's set to consume, which it is by default, it will then stop that key by being processed by anything on the lower layers. But if not, then after it's finishing processing this current layer, it'll move down to the next layer and it'll go do the same thing on repeat. An exception to this is each input layer can have an option called block input, I think it is, which will mean it won't allow anything else to go through this one input component. So that can be handy. Say you've got something that controls your character. If you want a pop-up to come up on the screen, that will then allow you to you have to press enter to get rid of it, but you don't want to have to bind like WASD, the normal moving keys. You don't have to rebind those to be to basically do nothing. So the way you can do it is you can say, okay, we're putting a new input component on the stack. This is just going to accept one input being enter, and it's going to be blocking all other inputs. So that'll prevent your character from moving or whatever inputs you may have had. On top of that, then, that input stack is, I said it's like a stack. It is prioritized. There's an order to it. Actors are the highest priority. Then there's player controller. Then there is the level blueprint, and at the bottom is the pawn. Pawn being any characters derived from pawn classes. So we had a look at how that worked and verified that it did work with some tests in editor last on Wednesday. And then what we wanted to look at, when you add an actor, we made an actor called Steve who we would add to the scene and they would consume input. If you add another actor called Bob would be the higher priority one. So it's basically the last one to be added to the scene is the one that takes priority. And then if you remove the top actor, it'll fall back to the previous one before that. So that's all well and good, but so it only allows you to toggle between them via adding and removing, destroying the objects. So we wanted to have a look. Is there a way that if we had like Bob, Steve, and Frank all alive, is there a way that I could switch which one has priority without needing to destroy and re-add one? Because that may be useful for us. And hello, Elisha in chat and over there. Hello. So that's kind of what we want to start with today, is have a look, can we change the priority of the actors? After that, we want to have a look how UI impacts this, because there's a node essentially, or a function you can call, which is where you set the input mode of your game. And you can either set it to game and UI, or UI, if I remember correctly. And I think if you just set it to UI, it no longer goes via the player controller, and it's a whole completely different stack of input. And we want to kind of just see what happens with that, just to make sure we understand it correctly. And to see whether or not how would we handle inputs in that way for UI stuff. And we may just use them in conjunction with one another. Anytime we need inputs to be handled on the UI layer, such as like an option screen where you're rebinding stuff, we just let the UI input stack handle that itself, whereas everything else we allow the player controller route to work. So we're going to see where we get with that, and then finally we want to move on to try and design a system where we can start using this to gamify things using this. So we add an actor to a scene, and it'll be like, okay, you need to press key P 5 times in a row, and then if you do that, you completed it, and it'll be success. If you don't, then it'll be like, oh, a failure. We'll design that, and if we can get implementing it today, it'd be great, but if not, we'll implement it next week. Because there's so many different ways that you could have this work. You could have like, example, let's just do what I said, right? Press P 5 times in a row. Okay, so then we need to consider things, when you do this, on complete, is called and the actor is destroyed. That bit is less options there. But what about when you fail? So if you press other keys between P, should that reset your correct, or should that count as a fail? Should that count as a fail? Be ignored? Yeah, and you then need to think about, how does a fail, like what does a fail mean? Do you need to start from the start? Do you have so many times you can fail? Does it generate a new, or does it keep your progress? So if I am 2 P presses in, do I still only have to press it 3 more times? Like that, there's lots of variances, and we've got to think, do we want to make a system that can handle all of these? So that's why I think it needs a bit of designing to think of the different situations you may have. You might set a limit at how often it can be failed before, like there'll be like an on fail. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm looking forward to kind of working with it, and we'd also need to tie some visuals to it as well, which is going to be tricky, I think. But yeah, okay, let's get started then. So first thing we wanted was to look at this, update the priority of actors without removing them. Yes, okay, I remember now. So let's first off launch. So we've made ourselves an actor called myActor. And I'm interested in perhaps how we can make this take a higher priority on the input stack. Thank you, Halsey.
Hey, I know that voice, that face. It can't be, is it? It is Dan.
Yes, it is. It's a Dan. At a time where Halsey is awake. What is this madness? Huh? Who goes there? Okay, let me just look through here. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for the subscription. And yes, a stampede is in order. Thank you very much.
Welcome back, adventurers.
Welcome back to the stream. Here's a face of me winking. Let's press all of my buttons. There's a pig pog. They're all there for us. Okay, so this was our scene before. We had a Steve, and if you remember, in the level blueprint, I did a tiny bit of logic, which looks a bit of a mess on reflection, but it's fine. We press Z, it'll spawn us an actor, and we press X, it'll remove an actor. So, and then we were pressing input. If we... Oh, there's audio in the scene. Interesting. So we have Adam as our first actor in here. I can show you that if I click on here. You can see their name is Adam. Press F8 to get back into my game. Now if I press Z, we have now got ourselves a new actor called Steve down here. There he is, Steve. And now if we press 1, 2 or 3, you can see that Steve is consuming this input. Before it was Adam. I know it's tiny, it's behind the screen. I always forget that. Tell you what, let me chuck this over here for today's stream. If I do this, I can move it to where my camera is. So then hopefully you can roughly see what I'm on about when I'm chatting. So we can see that we had Adam here and we have Steve down here. Okay. Great. So, and then I could press X, that'll remove one, and then if I press 1, 2, 3 again, it's Adam who's taking that input. Great. So what we want to do is say that I put, we add another one, so Steve is added again. Is there a way for me to make Adam take the priority back? Or we can add another one, let's add Steve 2. Can I make Steve 1 take priority again without having to destroy Steve 2? That's what we're trying to look at today. So let's start with a little bit of Google onto this. Is there anyone? Talking about this. Set input action priority in Unreal Engine. It'd be that. Matthew Waddstone does a bunch of videos which are a bit on so many different areas of the game, so fair dues to him.
Tomatoes?
Yeah, don't worry about his intro.
Play. When we pull up our pause menu, nothing really funny happens. We have our pause menu and then a separate menu that's created by our pause menu. When we hit the pause menu again, well, you'll notice that the main menu disappeared, but our separate menu was not. And if we hit pause again, well, now that one disappeared. And then
I think this is different.
We go back, unless you set up the priority. And that's what we're going to look at here. So...
Okay, so does an input stack thing have a priority? I guess that's what we want to look at. Might be worth us looking at the code here then. So when it goes through all of the actors with an input stack on, hold on, let's think about this. Where is the logic going to be handled? It'll be in the player input component, I think. So is there something where it says pawn in here? How does it know whether to prioritize the pawn over like player controller? Okay, maybe. Input stack. What is this? Build input stack by here. Okay, so control pawn gets last dibs. Yes, okay, this is it. This is the stack that we're interested in. Oh, look at this. It's actually all laid out. Perfect. This is what we're looking to find. Hey there, Benjo. Happy birthday to you, good sir. Daniel! My shirt. It's an old shirt, but it's comfortable. I'm glad you like it. Thank you, dude. You have a good birthday, Benjo. Much love. Thanks for being here. Sorry I was slow to see your message. Hello, Coach Carter, as well. Nice to see you, good sir. It's been some time. How's parenthood catching you? I think, like, last time we were catching you were quite new to being a dad. How's that been going for you, good sir? Okay, so we are build input stack. Let's write some notes on this because I'm pleased that it'll spell out exactly what we've been looking at. So if we jump back into, there's a bit here where we say the priority order. Yeah, to see this in code, look at, oh, let's copy the class in here as well. That's one thing I like. I always used to find this confusing in C++, that you put the name of the class before the function, but it does mean that you can actually just copy paste and you know exactly where to look then, right? Time flies, she's 3 in April. Crikey, that is going fast, isn't it? So let's go through and read through this function and see what's happening then, shall we? Sneezing, come in. Bless me. I go slightly Mario when I sneeze. Woohoo! Right, so first off, we have pawn. That doesn't get first dibs as it says here. It's the last thing. So I think we add things in the order because is it actually a stack or is it an array? It's a T array, but we're adding them first. So the last thing on there is the thing that we're treating it as a stack, but it is just an array. Get the explicit input component that is created upon pawn possession. This one gets last dibs. So by here we get the one that is actually a member variable of that. Then what we do, see if there's another input component that was added to the pawn's components array, possibly by a script. Okay. So then we get all of the components on this, and then we tick over them. Crikey, I didn't know it did this. So for every character, it'll do this. I wonder how often it builds the update stack, build input stack. Does it do it on tick? No way. Crikey. Okay. So just think if you have a player, your play character tends to have a ton of components on them, and they've got 100 different components on them. It's ticking over each one of those, trying to cast each one of those into a player input component. It just seems like it's a big old cost. It feels like when there's an update, it'd be nice if it would set a flag, so then you know you need to rebuild it. It's dirty and it needs rebuilding, you know? Hey, that's true for all of us, Coach Carter. But I guess we do only measure in years, so technically we're the same age for 365 days. I'll be 35 in a month. Isn't that glorious? I feel that's quite a landmark, an achievement. It's Ben Joe's birthday, Joe Hugh. It's also Merlin the Wizard's birthday. 2 lovely community members who've pretty much been about since the start of my streaming career. I don't know if Merlin's in chat, but they were on the Discord earlier. Ben said he needed to dash, so he might have been gone as well. Okay, let's go back to where we were then. Let's go into this input, build input stack function. And that adds it. So yeah, we make sure that it's not the same one. That's fine. In my opinion, couldn't you just do that? Wouldn't it be cleaner to, again, I'm looking at efficiency. I hate how work has done this to me. But if you did this bit separate, then you wouldn't waste time doing a cast on each frame to try and cast the same thing into it itself, because it's still the pointer. You'd be pointing at the same memory, right? Anyway, okay. Oh, there he is, birthday boy number 2. Hello there, Merlin, the birthday wizard. How are you, wonderful man? Right, now after that it goes to level script actors they put onto stack. So this goes into our world, it gets the levels, and then it checks. And you can get the level script actor. That's interesting, isn't it? I've never seen any of the syntax around level stuff, so this is interesting. Yeah, I'm doing wonderfully today. Thank you very much, Merlin. I slept in, which was unexpected somewhat. But yeah, we then woke up. We made some pancakes. So did a bit of cooking stuff together. Had breakfast. Had some chats. I had a cup of tea. I've got some to finish actually. And then getting my stream done, so I can normally I've left it quite late on Sundays while Alicia's been over because we just try and chill in on the weekend since I'm working like Monday to Friday. It's the times where we get daytime together, you know. But yeah, I wanted to get it out of the way and then we can have the evening together, which would be nice too. Birthday muffins. I mean, I don't have anything to give you, Merlin. I don't think it'll fit through my internet cable. I'll try and mush the leftover pancake through if you want. How are you doing, dude? Have you had a nice day? How's your new place and everything? Okay, so any input stagnant on the level actor. So what do we do here? It is input enabled on it. Okay, what is that check actually? That's interesting. Okay, so there's one input component on the level script actor. I guess every actor has one, so of course there is. That makes sense. And we push it on. Let's have a look then. Is input enabled? Is this a exposed? It is. Okay, let's have a look, shall we? So let's go to our level blueprint. Input. Auto receive input. I mean, is it true by default, perhaps? Yes, it is 1. So I wonder... Okay, let's put a breakpoint in there, shall we? I like this. I like the non-pressure to create and finish something. Because it means that I can just take these little excursions and look into it a bit. So we're going to put a breakpoint here. And we're going to go through once and find it should return true. And then we're going to try and change some of these members to see which one is the... I mean, it should actually be called... With that said, actually, it should be called input enabled. So maybe I just haven't looked properly. No, it's not called that here. So whether or not these are something that will control that or not, we'll have a look. I'm just going to take a very quick break back and then we'll have a look at that. Okay, champ? Be right back. Okay, we are back, and farewell, Merlin. Farewell. You enjoy your birthday. You deserve a lovely one. You're a very nice guy. And very non-selfish, which is a lovely trait. Okay, so we were going to have a look what happens if we breakpoint here and we press play. And on tick, we should hit this point. And the level script in here, let's F11 in. Oh, it doesn't let me. I don't have debug symbols, do I? Okay, that's fine. So it's going to continually go into here every frame. It's a bit ridiculous, really, that it does that, but it's probably good reason. Okay, let's press stop. Now let's try and change this then and say, there's an input priority, you see. Maybe we need to change those to enable this, but how can we? Would you need to do it on begin play, I wonder? What's it got on it? It's just got a U property, but it's not exposed. Input enable. Do we have a enable input? Disable input. Can you see that? Okay, so these functions are blueprint exposed? No? That's interesting. Oh, actually, they may be from the actor, what they inherit from. So it's called enable input. Let's have a look at that. Yes. So if we go ahead and do that. Does it need a play controller? Whose input events we no longer want? If null, this actor will stop receiving input from all play controllers. Oh, interesting. It says that. But the warning here says that you're not allowed to specify one. Anyway, okay, that's fine. Let's now press save and press play. And now if we go ahead and put a breakpoint where we were in here. And if we F11 this time, yeah, you can see that it won't do it. So we won't go into here that time. Okay. So you can turn off an input through saying input enabled and disabled, I guess, right? This may be useful to us in what we're trying to figure out. But that was done on our actor interface thing, wasn't it? Hold on. So we have enable input. It comes from actor interface. Let's have a look at this. And we can see this one is blueprint callable, right? Pushes this actor onto the stack of input being handled by the play controller. What happens if you enable it twice, I wonder? Okay, let's go in and have a look what happens, I guess. If play controller. What's play controller? Do we have a reference to our... Oh, no. Okay, this is the... Let's look at the disable first, because we've looked at the logic of that. Otherwise, we go through each bit. Okay. I can see why the comment said what it did, but it's still... there's a conflict in what the comment and the parameter says, I guess, right? But it's okay. So we just pop the input component off of it. So what happens here then if we enable it? It doesn't exist. So first off, we check... Does the input component, because this is on an actor, every actor has an input component, does it exist? Then we create it. Okay, so enabling will create it. So let's do it. We need to write some notes. Oh, I'm going to forget some of this. So, and then we put the opposite one down as well. Disable input. Okay, these functions are available. Any actor. Ah, hang on, but this is for actor. So if we manually added an input component, this wouldn't be available to us, but that's okay. No, at the moment, that doesn't impact us. Since every actor by default has an input component. Remember, when enabling, it will create the input component if it does not already exist. Okay, sweet. Let's look at the code then. That's interesting, the way that it does get class here. I'm guessing that's because it can be any subclass of it, right? Yeah, some interesting stuff. I've not really seen this sort of code stuff before, but I kind of understand it at least, which is nice. Okay, let's go back to where we were. Otherwise, make sure we only have one instance of the input component on stack. So, we pop it and then they push it. Very interesting. Okay, so if we try and enable one that is already enabled, it will pop it off and then push it back onto the stack. Effectively, we can re-enable an input component in order to push it, which is push it to the top of the priority stack of its at least compared to other of its category. Hello there, Reality-O. How you doing, dude? Yeah, the face cam goes on for charity streams, which have happened the last 2 Decembers. And this year I set a target of £1,500. If we got there, I would do face cam for 2021, which we smashed. We almost got to 2,500, which was amazing. So thank you again for everyone who contributed. But yeah, this is why we have face. We even have little gifs of me doing cheesy little things like that. Good day. Good. How are you doing, good sir? Nice to see you. Okay, so that's cool. I think that is the answer to what we wanted. We're going to finish going through this, the input stack, bit of logic though. Hold on. Build input stack it was called, I think, right? Maybe it was in the play controller? Yes, yeah. Okay, so level, that's fine. And then input component. What's input enabled here then? That's on the play controller. I'm wondering what this little line is here. Oh, no, I do know what this is. It's just they haven't commented it. That's odd. They commented the rest of it, but this should essentially have a comment saying the player controller is the next highest priority thing. So we basically add the player controller on, and then after that we add any actors that have it. Glad to hear, Reality-O. Very nice to hear. So it's nice to see familiar names in here as well. So let's try and think what this is doing. So this is now saying go from 0 up to until index is, or whilst index is less than our current amount of things. And we go over each one. What do we call .get on an array here? It's a weak pointer, is it? Well, we haven't actually looked yet. The input stack that's why we do it. It's an array of weak pointers. Okay. I do tend to make them public, yeah. Oh, they're not private. This one I haven't. No one's asked for it yet, but I can definitely get a link for this. Anyone with the link can have a look at it. That's no problem. But what I try and do is I'll consolidate. I'll consolidate this and I'll chuck it into I have another one that I try and put all of my notes in about Unreal stuff, which is this one here. So I'll probably add it into this at some point, but there's another link here if you're interested. But I'll probably try and put the important stuff in there at one point. My compendium. So we got input in here already, right? So like when we started doing this, I already had a bit of a foundation, but this was around 2 years ago I looked into this stuff. So it's been nice to get back into the input stuff. So generally what I'm trying to do is understand a little bit more about the input system with the intention of building up a system that will allow me to have like a mini game where it's expecting certain inputs. It'll pop up on the screen and you've got to press the buttons that it shows in the right order. Or even one of those typing games, you know, where it'll have a sentence that you have to type. And it'll track if you do mistakes, then it'll stop and it'll wait for you to go through. Like they're all the same sort of games, right? Where it's input reliant. So I'd like to try and make a system that will allow both of those, and then I could use that's implementation then in little game jams and stuff like that. I also think typing games are they don't have a long lifespan, but they definitely have appeal. Because I think a lot of people take some pride in their ability to touch type and stuff as well. But there's lots of little mini games that you can do with like QWOP. That's a great example of like how just silly keyboard controls can transform a basic action of running into something quite challenging. I've never seen Epistory. Is that a typing based game? You know it, do you? Elisha knows it. Okay, so let's try and work out how it does this. So it gets it and then it adds it. Hold on. Yeah, I'm trying to work out this last bit. Components pushed onto the stack get priority. So current input stack. Have we been adding to current? No. Okay, there's an input stack. There's two different things, is there? So we have an input stack itself, which is passed in. Okay, this is a parameter we're building up. Okay, that makes sense, I think. Then we go through our current input stack. And then we add them onto it at the end. So things manually added to that input stack. When does this get added to, I wonder? I wonder hang on, what's going on here? Do we just get rid of it afterwards? No, we push it, otherwise we don't. Oh, I guess this is if it's been destroyed or something here. Because yeah, if it's on the stack but you can't cast it to an input component, then chances are it was a weak pointer. So the object that held the actor that held that input component has been destroyed. So when we try and cast it, it's now a null pointer. Because our weak pointer won't hold keep it alive, right? And so as a result, it won't be a valid get, and so it'll take it off. Okay, that's cool. That's how it manages that. I'm interested in seeing how it adds to it. So when we add a new actor, how does it know to register it? So we'll have a little look. As it's been mentioned, I'll have a little look. No, I've never seen this. Looks pretty nice though, doesn't it? Have you completed it, Elisha? Epistory. Right, you just know of it though. Oh. Are you riding a fox? I mean, that's a selling point already. It's a glorious fox as well. Yeah, that sounds a nice idea. That could be. Do you think you'd enjoy it, Lisa? It has high ratings as well on Steam. I just saw when we searched it initially. I get Metacritic's not suit with 75%, but 9 out of 10, 91%. Cool. Thank you for the heads up. Yeah, the art style does look nice. With a game like that, you need people to be enjoying the world that they're in, I think, don't you? Okay. So let's make a little brief note on what I just uncovered. There exists. So let's just say the pawn level script controller stuff is pretty straightforward. However, the way the actors works is it checks a separate array in the player controller called the current input stack and adds it to the per tick built input stack. No, that's not very clear. Add it to the input stack that is returned by the build input stack function called tick. So this array is built ... We need to have a look how it's built then. It all makes sense. This is an array of weak pointers, which also handles removing input components in it if their owning actors have been destroyed, and therefore the pointer is no longer valid. Hello there, Beef Viper. The array is built how? Okay. The current input stack. How do we add to that? That's what we want to know. So let's have a look. Where does this come up? Current input stack. Push input component. Okay, so we have a few things down in push input component, and then the other place it comes up is up here. That's the only place. Okay, cool. So it only gets called here. It's called. So this is how you push one onto the player controller. So I'm guessing when an actor is spawned, if it has an input component that is enabled, it will call push input component. We can have a look at that in a sec. Let me do a Control-Shift-F on that at the moment, just so we can see where else this comes up. But for now, we'll carry on looking through this function. So if it's valid, we will remove single. I've not even seen that before. Is that just if it exists already? Okay, so basically it finds it. If it doesn't exist, it doesn't return. Okay, that's fine. So we remove it. And then we go through the stack from the end, stepping down to the front. And do we check the priority in here? Yes, this is it. This is that bloody priority. We've been looking for information on this. Okay, so when it goes down back through the stack then, I like how actually this code is really readable, the engine code. Quite often I get put off when it's full of lambdas and macros and stuff that make it hard for me to kind of process. But yeah, this has been quite nice to read through, so thank you, dear Epic. Why do they have 2 blank lines between these 2 functions, hey? Where else just 1? How dare they? How dare they? I wouldn't want to go out there and say bad code, but I'll say that it varies, right? The readability of it, at least, let's just go say that much. I don't feel I'm qualified probably to say whether it's poor code. But also the way the larger projects go, isn't it? People will add work without being the original people who made the work, and then they may not understand. They may not utilize the code the way they should, and then things get inefficient. I mean, this file alone is 6,000 lines. Eek. Okay, this is interesting to me. So push input component. Let's go ahead and level blueprint and controller input stacks onto the input stack. When called, it will remove passed in input component if it already existed on the stack, to ensure you can't have 2 of the same type, the same input stack, let's say. Input component on the stack. What else do we have in here that's interesting? So we then get the current one. We also again do a bit of cleanup. If it needs to be removed, then we get rid of it. But then if it is it checks, it walks from the highest priority downwards, then walks down the stack from highest priority. And that, no, we don't need to say that. From top to bottom. And it compares the input component I see in this instance is the one that we're the existing one, right? And in input component is our one. We want to make sure, is it less than or equal to? So if it's less than or equal to, it inserts it. Okay, so the lower the priority is the better one. Actually, no, hang on. No, my mistake. If the existing one is less than or equal to, then the newer one gets added. That completely makes sense. Give it a new insert on the array here to add a new, and you give it a position to add it. I think this makes sure that it doesn't rearrange the array when you use insert as well. Insert into array. No, it doesn't say anything about that, but you assume that if we're treating it as a stack, then it must keep preserve the order there. The font pretty small. I can make it a little smaller. Yeah, I've changed to a 1440p monitor as of late, and so it does make it mean that the font size is typically, like, I could probably work at this amount, and that's going to be really small for you, but I'm happy to take it up a bit. When I'm writing code, I prefer it a bit smaller, but thank you for the shout. I was a bit slow to see your message. Okay, that's cool. So essentially we'll compare if it then compares the priority member of the input stack, input component being added to the how do I know what I want? I'm in my mind. I know what it's doing. I'm trying to just put it into words. To each existing input component Oh, please type better, Dan. If we the new one has equal, greater than or more, or equal to priority, it will place it. Therefore, if two input components have the same priority, they will be ordered based on the like when they were added is what we're talking about. Hello there, Wing. We got some zoomage in there, don't you worry. Warm. Is that better? Here we go. Chunkers. Wing, I apologize. I've not really checked on your Discord for far too long. Have you managed to stream lately? And how are you? They'll be ordered based on the time, the most recently added. Okay, good. I have found that useful. How dare you? Look, I signed up. I signed up to your Discord and I became part of one of your role classifications, didn't I? What was that? I was Team Avocado, if I remember correct. Yeah, there I am, Team Avocado. Well, no, I realise I've said sorry for not checking because me wondering if you've been streaming, I could have easily known by just checking on your Discord. Right. Thank you, Freezer Nick, for the follow. Welcome, welcome. Okay, we can also close this down while we're not looking for stuff. Okay, so I'm guessing what we'd need to do then to answer our question of how do we... Where is it? Down here. How do we update the priority of an actor input component? Well, hold on. It doesn't even have to be an actors, right? You can manually add an input component itself, I guess. But what would manage the memory is what I'm interested in there, I guess. Hey there, Freezer Nick. I've not streamed in a while. Would you like a therapy session? How come? And how do you feel about that? You don't have to answer. Just say something like, I like Jurassic Park if you don't want to talk about it. We'll talk about Jurassic Park instead because it's a classic film. Right, how do we update the priority of an actor's input component? No, yeah, I guess. As we know, it will prioritize the latest component added to the stack. Is there a way to rearrange or reprioritize an actor's input component without removing or destroying and recreating the actor? Yes, we need to just re-add the input component. Since the system already restricts us from adding the same input component twice in a row, twice on the same stack, we can simply try and re-add it, and it will remove the old and add the new. I like Jurassic... Wait, I don't really like Jurassic Park though. It scared me as a kid. Oh dear. I mean, there was a little bit of fear in there, wasn't there? You know, like the scene where the T-Rex is chasing him in the rainy, jungly bit, and the toilet porter cabin thing. There should be public int priority in the input component. Yes, no, there is for sure. That's what we just found up here. So we're just looking at the code now, Nick, and in the push input component, when you add a new one, it will compare each priority member of the input component, or the one you're adding, to the current order of the input stack, and it will place it based on that. But I think if you just change the priority, that isn't going to update your order of the stack. So if it's already on the stack, I don't think it doesn't go through and check the priorities every time it's going through the stack. It uses that priority when adding it to the stack, is my understanding. The Velociraptor's in the kitchen. Yes, I mean that bit. I don't think I was scared by it, but I'm older than you guys as well, so I probably saw it as an older guy. I mean, I was still a boy, but still. But maybe there is a function that changes it and restructures it. Wing, I am 35 next month. I know. Who'd have thunk it? This young face. You can't disagree. Elisha, tell her. Huh? She's saying that I'm not my age. Wing is. Can you confirm I'm 34? Okay, Elisha's pretty much moving here, but doesn't know my age, so she's not backing me up here. Thanks, Griffin. It's fine. It's fine. Good job, Elisha. Well, you've made a friend. You've strengthened your bond with Wing. Okay, so let's see, is there a way for us to change that priority? That's a fair question. There might be a update priority rather than pushing it on. So the way I check this is we're going to have a look at our priority member on our input stack, right? And we'll first check, is there a priority? No, there's no function called update priority. Okay, and the other thing, we'll go in here and we'll check each time that priority comes up. Priority doesn't come up anywhere in here. Interesting. Okay, play controller. How does the priority come up in here? Get net priority. No, that's going to be different. This is to get the priority. It comes up here only. Yeah. Okay, so priority seems to only be used in those few places. I believe you, Dan. You dislike fun enough to be old and love rules. I mean, rules give structure. It gives us a baseline to live by, right? Some of my friends in work, I was making fun of them because they watch anime, and someone corrected someone that Skyrim doesn't have dragons because they actually don't meet the specification of a dragon. So I made fun of them for correcting a dragon definition, for example. And then they made fun of me by asking, what do you do in your spare time? I can imagine you just go and sit in a white room with nothing in it. I mean, it'd be quite relaxing. I think, anyway. I don't like fun, eh? There were, yeah, it's something about your arms, like the wings are on the same bit of the arms or something like that. I don't know the definition. I don't really think they're silly for it, by the way. I always find it funny when someone says, oh, I think you'll find they're not dragons. It always, in my mind, I'm like, nah, if you check the dragon definition in section C, you'll find it does that in my head. But I'm the same about stuff that I care about, so I don't actually think any less of them. But it's always fun to poke fun. So one of the guys at work was saying that he's kind of how did he word it? He's essentially saying that he stopped watching anime. He's like cleansed and like a reformed anime, because he used to like run the society when he was in university, and then once he left university and started working, he didn't have time anymore, and so he ended up kind of just like stopped watching it, and he felt like, but he still really loves it, right? So there was that risk that he could get back into it. So he was saying, oh, we should stop talking about it because I feel like I might want to get back into it. And I was like, no, you should remain your remain how you are, because effectively you've finally grown up. You've become an adult and you've stopped watching anime. I was saying that to a room where I know that 80% of them still watch anime. See, that's my type of baiting. I don't really judge them, but it's always fun to just be the one to upset them. And I wonder why I get picked on. Anyway. Wormius, how have you been, good sir? So it seems to us that the way to update the priority would be to do, there's two ways to do it. There doesn't seem to be a direct way to do it. We would just repush, we'd do this again. So where's this? So we would call this pushing component again, I think. And I think that is a... Now, if I was doing it to individuals, hold C, it'd be bullying, right? If I was messaging someone saying, you need to grow up, stop watching cartoons, you nerd, that would be bullying. But when I'm saying it, knowing I'm outnumbered to an audience of people who disagree with me, then that's a different type of... That's just... it's just baiting, I guess, right? Such an aggressive... I'm a thug, Wormius. You watch out. What am I trying to find at the moment? I feel like there was two places where we add it. We basically checked if it existed already, and then it re-adds it again. Did I? Yeah. You'll add it to the input. Okay, here. Removing input guns if the owning actors have been destroyed. Okay, no. Oh, this is wrong as well. It shouldn't be push input controller. The array isn't built when push input component is called, is it? No, it should be when build input stack is called. Actually, no, I might be wrong. Push input component. What did I push input component? This is is it in the play controller, right? What? Okay, where is it then? How have I lost? How have I lost where this is? So it is in play controller. I don't know why I didn't find it when I searched for it. I guess you, yeah, no. I don't know. Maybe I mistyped it when I searched. Okay. So yeah, this is where we went through and added it. Okay. So I think that seems to me the right thing to do it. I wonder if we want to change the priority. It's a publicly exposed thing, I think, right? So if we go and we have a look at the priority when pushed into the stack, yeah, it's public. So we should make a note of that as well. I think, hang on, did I talk about priority in here? Yeah. No. Well, based on priority, you can add an input stack by calling push. Yeah, the same sort of thing here. No, we didn't talk about it any further than that. Okay, that's fine. We are not able to just change the priority of an input component, as the priority is only considered when adding an input component to the stack. Okay, sweet. I guess the final thing to conclude my little research into that area would be, does this current input stack, no, we looked, it doesn't get touched anywhere else. And is it shouldn't be public. No, it is protected. So we're pretty safe to say that doesn't get changed anywhere else. So we understand how this is all sorted here then. That's lovely. It does help to have a bit of a base understanding. So how would we do it then? Let's try and do this. We want to make our act. We want to have control over an actor to change its priority. So I guess we would just need to call push input component on our player controller. So my actor, we've made our own custom class here. We're going to make a blueprint expose function in here. So let's just make it public. Let's make it a U property. Let's make it a U function, sorry. And then we want to say this is blueprint callable. We need to give it a category if we do that. So this is just going to be called input. Okay, and we're going to call this yeah, we could do it this way. Give priority. Let's just give it that name for now. Give top input priority. And it won't take anything in. Let's define this function then in here. Essentially, what we need to do in here then is we need to get the player controller. So, isn't there like a get first player controller? But I think that we need to get that from the world, don't we? So if uWorld equals get world, let's get that first, and then we'd say if this is going to be a player controller, we don't care what type of player controller it is. We want to get the world dot get first player controller. Either of these would work. Do it here. Excuse the sirens. C++ or C#, which is the better one for game dev, would you say? I think the question really is which game engine do you want to use? Vegilito, or if you want to make your own? I don't think there is a correct answer to that. C# would be a lot more suited if you are new to coding. I think it's a bit more of a friendly language. It's also suited if you want to be using Unreal or want to be making like 2D games. You can use C#. I think Godot is starting to allow C# as well. I'm not 100% on that. But that would be reasons to use C#. Whereas if you want to use Unreal Engine, or you want to make your own engine and have real control over memory, then C++ would be a good choice. So they're both good choices. I would personally say lean towards C# and Unity. I work in C++ and Unreal because my job is in C++ and Unreal. And I'd rather get good at what I do in a day, because then I feel like I can do my job better. And if I do my job better, then I feel better about myself, and then I can have a better time outside of work too. So that's where my brain reasons it anyway. It's like the X is in your name, isn't it, Wing? C++ for Wing XX. I can call it CPP, but then people laugh when I say PP. So there's no winning here, right? So then we want to say player controller dot. Well, first off, we'd need to do a check on if input component. Actually, no, you wouldn't need to check that. Wasn't there a checkbox I did on my actor to allow it to receive input, or was that on the blueprint of it? Shall we have a look at our dear my actor that I made before? Where are you? My actor Steve. Let's have a look at your blueprint. Auto receive input. Yeah. So this would just be I guess it would be this. See, Beef Viper likes PP. Wing likes PP. Is it really so much grained by controlled storage? What do you mean by controlled storage in that sense? Hang on, is really so much gained, sorry, by controlled storage? What is in the C++ controlling? I'd say C++ gives you low-level control over memory, which can be more useful in things like embedded systems, which are like where you have a very limited set of constraints of hardware, such as like a little board that's running your washing machine, for example. That's typically where you'll have these low-level programming languages preferred because they give you that direct management and you can work within a set of constraints. But it does also allow you to optimize and take a bit more control in optimization in games. So, like the main project I work in at work is live on consoles as well as PC. So we are restricted to two kind of types of hardware. One being the console that it runs on, and two being the hardware of the server that runs the servers. So those two restrictions mean that you can't just keep adding stuff into the game and it'll be okay. You will run out of memory and it'll crash the server. So that's where it's not for standard, like you're just making a game for fun or maybe a little indie dev excursion. But if you're making a scalable large game, those things definitely, where you want to get the most out of the hardware you're limited to. There's benefits from that. But I wouldn't say like you can still optimize with things like C#, but not quite in the same way, because it doesn't give you the direct access to memory in the same way. That's my understanding of it anyway. Okay, I don't think we need to check this. We just need to go ahead and play a controller push. What did I press there? Push input component, and then we want to get our current input component. So if I hang on. Ooh, hold on. Input priority. Edit anywhere. Oh no, that's the thing that we've seen before. This input component, however, doesn't it add it at some point? There is a bit where it will get it or it will add it if it doesn't exist already. And I'm forgetting where that is. It'll be in the actor class, I guess, right? Let's just jump into the CPP of this. Here, no. Here. Enable input. And so we can just call enable input instead. That is what I was trying to think of before. So we should do that rather than pushing directly, in my opinion, because that will make sure that we've got one as well. So we'll call enable. We should update our notes to reflect that then. Directly, but it is healthier to call enable input on the component, as that will create an input component if it doesn't already exist prior to calling push input component. Okay, sweet. Happy with that. Hello, Uno. You're old. It is fine if you forget stuff. Who are you again, Uno? I'll explain. I had a hard time seeing the use, studying C++ and use C# a bit. Okay, I mean, both are very well used languages. So like knowing either of them is going to be a useful skill for you. But I guess for me, I started learning game dev hoping I could get into it as a career. So I started with C# and Unity because I'd done Java around 10 years prior. And then I ended up doing around 7 years of nothing to do with programming or anything along those lines. So I thought it would be easier to get into it because it was Java and C# are quite similar syntactically in the way that they work. So that's why I went that route. And I only changed. My aim was to get better, learn about it. And then once I know how it works, to look at job opportunities and stuff. And the job opportunity came up to me was in Unreal and C++. So that at that point I switched over and started learning C++ and Unreal. It was a lot to take on at once, to be fair. It was quite stressful. And when I started in my job, I was quite new at it all. But my point here being my objective initially was just to try and learn before I had an opportunity really where I had savings to live on. I'd stopped working my previous job, and I could dedicate fully to just trying to learn, and that was my objective. Whereas if your objective is I'm in university, I want to have a job as soon as I finish, then what you learn might be different based on that. Flamethrowers, Uno Maestro. I can't remember making such a promise. I remember there was this guy who used to rickroll me far too often, Uno. Does that person sound familiar to you? Right, my actor here. So instead of calling push, we're going to just call enable input instead. Yeah, and I don't think we need to pass anything into that, right? Oh, we do. We have to pass in the player controller. Why do we have to pass in the player controller to enable input? Oh, this is like which controllers you want it to be, right? So if it's null or it's the current player controller, then you can. Okay, well, we can just call it with null, I guess. It just feels a bit weird to do a function call like that, but we'll go with it. That's not a problem. Okay, so now that we've got this function, if we were to compile and get access to this, we need to try and think how we could I guess really we'd be doing this via code, right? Of when we want something to take priority, we would just call this function. So it might be easier for us to add a few different, instead of adding the actors dynamically. Going to get a bachelor in game dev and animation. Oh, okay, that sounds pretty cool. See, game dev is pretty widespread. So when you say animation, animation sounds good. And it makes me wonder, are you leaning more towards the kind of tech art animation side of game dev rather than the development side of it? Right, so my point here is we want to have a few different actors. So we have Adam. We're going to make a new one then. We'll call this one Bob. And then we'll do one more. This one's going to be called Charlie. Okay, Adam, Bob, and Charlie. ABC. There was a reason for the names. Let's move them back. Okay, so when we start this now, what we essentially need to do is in the level blueprint, we want to get references to these. So we're going to go into the level blueprint. Do we have access? We have an array. We were adding them to an array as we're not going to use that system anymore. So we're just going to get references to get a reference to Bob to begin with. We'll do this for each of them. It's a little bit clunky, but we'll go ahead and do it because this is just for example's sake. As I said, we would be doing this in the code realistically rather than because we'd make an actor and then we would get hold of that actor that we want to take priority and we would call this function on it. But I just want to test it in quickly in editor, so that's why I'm achieving it in this means. So there we go. We've got these and we can promote these to variables then in our level blueprint. So if we right click promote, this is just going to be called our Adam. We'll probably do this in. Oh, we no longer want to disable input on this. Okay, yeah, we want to set Adam. We'll promote this as well. This one is going to be called our Bob. And then we'll have our Charlie. Okay, so we should set all of those then. That means that at the start of the game, we have we get references to them, and then that means we can bind some quick things on them. Hello, Bobek, just in time. It's good to see you. Good, sir. How are you doing? I like the game engine design part. All the CPP programming and math. I've never really been good at art, music, or storytelling. Okay, fair enough, Beef Viper. Yeah, I think we tend to play at our own kind of strengths, right? I wouldn't say I think I enjoy coding. I've got a brain that works quite well with it, but I wouldn't say that it's like my forte, because I think I'm also I personally believe that I am quite decent at coming up with ideas, a design point of view of player kind of experience or user experience side of things as well. I'm not particularly good at making art, but or music, but at the same time, I enjoy playing around with that stuff. So I kind of like to wear a lot of hats, but I don't do that at work. I just do code. But that's why I enjoy game jams as well. They give you that chance to play around in those different areas. I joined a game jam. There's only once I've done it where I joined a game jam as not a coder, and I said I'll just make assets for you. And it was probably the most relaxed game jam I've ever done. And I made a bunch of furniture. I don't do 3D modeling. I learned a little bit on stream before. What's it called? Sketchfab, is it? Here, I probably made one. Was it HonestDan? Yeah, look at all these. So in the game jam, I literally just went through and made a bunch of like things. It was like a game where you had to make a house with different things. So I made a bed. Can I not press escape to go off? No. We had a lamp and a table, a little chest of drawers, a toilet. It's a bit angular, but bear with it. A sink and stuff as well. So yeah, like this was really fun for me. I really enjoyed this, even though it's not what I normally do. It made the game jam so much less stressful for me, just being able to make assets. Because I was trying to explain this to someone before. With code, every bit you do impacts later work you do as well. Because like if you rush a part of your system and then you work on a new system which needs to kind of interact with it a bit, it can be, oh, this is now harder because I rushed this last bit or I did it in a poor way. Whereas with assets, you kind of make an asset. And yeah, if you make it bad, I'm sure there's things like if you did the scaling, if you didn't think about the scaling, or you started doing textures in a way that you didn't consider things in the future, there's certain elements that are going to tie all your assets together. But ultimately, you make one asset, you move to the next, and you're done. And ultimately, if you run out of time, you'll have less assets rather than it doesn't do anything, which is really impactful when it comes to like a game dev or a game jam or something, right? If you can't play the game, that's a lot different to, oh, we only have like 2 different items you can buy in your house. Yes, indeed, Jaboko, and how lovely to see you. Look at all those kisses on the butt of the pig horse. All right, anyway. So we've got references to these. I just need to come up with some quick keybinds. What have we got used already? 1, 2, 3, and then we've got... Okay, should we just bind them to ABC? Because that goes with the names, right? Okay, so bind, we want to do input. If we just go A, what's it? This stuff here. Annoyingly, it's really a bit awkward to get hold of. So if I go A, you then need to find it within our keyboard. So much stuff in here. But you can't find it in another way. It really annoys me. Actually, input. Okay, here we're getting in the right. This is controller input. Keyboard input. There we go. Finally. Where's the keyboard input? It should be a big list of little functions. There. Here we want B for Bob. And then we want C. Again, if it wasn't in Blueprint, this would be a lot easier. But we're just trying to get something quickly iterated to prove what we're learning. Or to consolidate, let's not say prove, it sounds like we're... Here. Not here? Oh, it's such a pain. So many functions have the letter B in it. C, sorry. Okay, we got them. Search for category. I swear, like, I've tried that before. So I've tried keyboard. Oh, you are right. If you go keyboard A, no way does that work. I've tried this before, I swear. Today we learned. Okay, I swear that thought process went through my brain last stream. We tried it, and I must have typed something wrong because it didn't work for me. But there we go. I think I might have put keyboard events or. Thank you, Freezenick. I appreciate it. Okay, so what we want to do here then is we want to get hold of our Adam reference, and Bob reference, and our Charlie reference. Just hold control while dragging those out to do a get on them rather than a set, so it doesn't pop up and ask you every time. So when it's pressed, or when it's released is normally a nicer way to do it. We're going to go ahead and call that new function we made, which was make top priority, was it? What did I call it? Give top input priority. Oh, it's because I'm not coming off of Adam, sorry. Give top input priority. Now, I realize we should probably... there's one thing I want to add to my function, because this does not... There's not a way to make sure that you're giving the top input priority. I think we'd need to have a system where there's only so many different input priority numbers that we use in our game, and we set a const variable that will reflect our top one. Alternatively, what you could do is you could iterate over your input stack and get all the priorities, or look at the last one in there and work out what the priority is of that and make sure that you set it one higher. But you have the risk of keep going higher and higher every time you switch between them that way. And it's more CPU usage there. So let's go ahead and do this for each one of these. On release. Release. Great. Okay, so that should give us that. The one thing I wanted to change in the code then was I feel we should change our input priority of our. See, when we enable input, if it doesn't exist already, can you give it a enable input? This is not. Yeah, I realize this is not. I realize I've done this wrong. This is not correct. We want to go to the actor. Hold on. We don't want to call enable input on the bloody player controller. We want to call it on this actor. This is what we want, right? So input priority, how does this input priority get set? Is this a public exposed? Edit anywhere. Priority when we push into the stack is public. Okay, great. So we can do it. What I was concerned about is at this point the input component may not exist. So we can't set it if it doesn't exist yet. It gets created within enable input if it's not already made. However, it does seem that we could, before doing it, we can say input priority is equal to, and we could go ahead and make we tend to use private namespaces in work for this sort of thing. So you do this sort of thing, and then you make a namespace and you give it a name, which would be my actor private. So this is only accessible within this file essentially. We should know that was right to do it that way. We should have done the first one that way as well. And then in here you can go ahead and make a const int32 max priority. You can, if you want to, some languages use capitals to determine consts. I'm not going to, because that tends to be used for macros in Unreal. So we're just going to call it max input priority. You'd probably want to do this in a more robust way, but it's fine for me at the moment. So if we just go for 9, we're thinking we have 0 up to 10 if we think of it in that way, then we can go ahead and set that like that. Okay, that should hopefully now work, I think. So I'm glad we noticed before we tried it. Okay, didn't like that. Max input priority, undeclared identifier. Oh, of course. Yeah. If you do it in that way, in that namespace, you'd need to refer to it in that way. My mistake. Went super quick though, didn't it? I love this tiny project. There's no the compile time is tiny. Okay, so let's press play. So these were added into the world in the following order: Adam, Bob, Charlie. So what we expect is that Charlie should have priority at the moment. So if the way we look at this, I don't know if we can change this font size. Is there anything in our editor editor preferences, output? Here, yeah, font size. Let's go to 12, shall we? Oh, we need to restart. That's a bloody shame. Okay, that's fine. So let's go ahead, stop. Restart now. Save. Oh, actually, we're debugging it, so I'm not too sure it's going to work that way. Does it maintain a debug session? No, I didn't think it would. Blast. Let's close this down again then, and we'll debug it. I'm just going to make a cuppa while this is launching, okay? So I'll be right back. back. We are back. Hello, Safari. Sorry about that. I went to get myself a cup of tea while we were relaunching. And that means boiling water and brewing it and stuff. So, but it's Sunday. I'm allowed to do what I want. So, to reconvene where we were, we've added these actors in this order. As we know, the order that we add them to the scene at runtime or even an editor is the order in which they will be added onto the input stack. And so as a result, Charlie will have the highest priority. Each of these have an input component on them that will consume buttons 1, 2, and 3 and say something in our input log when we do that. Thank you for the welcome back. So when I press 1, we can see, Charlie is consuming it. I know it's a bit not super obvious, but I'm looking at this little bit down here. Okay, so you can see action 1, that's when I press 1, and then it says Charlie there. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Fantastic. So before, our previous way to, if we wanted to give an actor, if we added a new actor, let's say we added Dan into the scene, then they would take priority. But what we want to see is, if we ever wanted Dan to no longer have priority and Charlie to take priority again, how we did it before was we got rid of Dan and then Charlie would get priority again. Or we'd get rid of Charlie and re-add them to the scene. But we don't always want to destroy our actor because we might want this to physically be in our world all the time, right? Or it might have other impacts in the game. So we've gone to a system now where if I press A, B, or C, it'll call a function that we made called give top input priority here, where it should add the re-enable the input. So it's already got an input on it, but what it does is it'll make sure that it exists an input component for this actor, and then it adds it. And when it adds in the player controller, when it goes through the input processing, it will construct this stack of input controllers, and if it has the same priority or more than the current highest priority one, it will then become the new highest priority one. So that should mean that if I press A now for Adam, and then I press 1, 2, 3, we can see Adam has priority. If I press B for Bob, and then I press 1, 2, 3, Bob has priority. And if I press C for Charlie, Charlie has priority. Yay, it works as we expected. So that is how we would go ahead and give priority to different things at runtime without having to add or remove actors to achieve that same thing. So that was the first objective of today's stream that we have gotten done. And I actually didn't know the answer to it before we started, so I feel that is good. So we have now done this. So the next thing we want to look at was how does the UI override work? So there's a thing called set input mode. So let's have a look in our, let's just use our level blueprint, shall we? So we'll go into blueprints, open level blueprint. Let's open this fully. So let's instead go into our begin play. We can still get those references, that's fine. But let's now go and say we want to do set input mode, this. So can you see we got these 3? So what does set input mode actually do? We might have a look in the code to try and find where this comes up. Set input mode. Let's just do a search for that and see what comes up first off, eh? Okay, set input mode. There we go. This actually calls this function in here, which then calls input mode. So if the play controller exists, we want to set our input mode. We make a new input mode struct. I'm guessing this is. Excuse me. Oh. Yeah, it's a structure used to set up an input mode. Okay, so we make a new one of those. We set lock mouse to viewport behavior, so that must just be a thing that we set up on that struct. Okay, that's fine. Hello there, Safari. I did say hello earlier. Sorry, I was on a brief break when you said hello initially. How's it going? Okay, and then if in widget to focus, so that was a member we passed in here, right? Widget to focus, yes. Okay, that's fine. Ignore that. We add that, and then we do set input mode on the player controller. Fantastic. So it seems like it still actually is routed through the player controller. Okay, let's make a topic on this then, shall we? So set input mode. So there's going to be we are able to set the input mode to one of 3 states. You either have game input, UI, or game and input. I think they were the 3 settings, weren't they? Yeah. UI only. I guess they say only. We can add that to our. Like so. Alrighty, so when calling these functions, trickles through to the, what function was it called? A player controller set input mode in here. Function. Now let's have a look what this does then. So this gets the current game viewport. We get the local player. And then we apply the input mode on. So you must pass this in as a reference. If we press this, is it a reference in? Yeah. Hold on. Oh no, hang on. What do we use the player for here? Oh, local player. I guess we get this slate operations. That's what we use it for. Okay, so we call that though on this in data. I'm confused how this F input mode base thing is being. Like we make this input mode, don't we, from scratch here, right? So we make it, but does it get stored anywhere? I'm guessing it doesn't. It's just used as a way to set these things. So okay, let's just carry on going through and. So this must be, it must derive, this is the base, and so you have the different ones for whether it's UI only or whatever it be. And then what it does, it depends on whether it was UI game or UI and game. That's my current interpretation of it. So I guess first off we'll look at apply input mode in a moment. Let's get this get slate operations. So it's just an array and now F reply. I have no idea what these are. Is this the CPP? No, this is the H. It's all defined in here. It's quite a big chunk of boy. There's the members here. F reply here. Okay, so there's some information about mouse focusing, drag and drop. Okay. So we basically get the operations associated with the local player already. There's local player controller, right? Oh, you local player. What is a you local player? Don't think I've ever. It's just a U object. Don't think I've ever seen this class before. Local player. Each player that's active on the current client has a local player. It stays active across maps. There may be several spawned in the case of split screen or co-op. There may be 0 spawned on servers. So does the local player exist on player controller then? Do you have a uLocal player? You return one and we cast the player, which is a, yeah, okay, so there is a member on player controller. I didn't know that. So that persists between maps, whereas a player controller does not. Okay, we've learned a little bit. So on a player controller, there exists a U object called a U player. Local. Is it just a U player? It is, right? Yeah. This exists. Did it say it was a client-based one? Actually, the U player. Does it give us information in the CPP? Okay, we won't write too much about it if we don't understand it. Exists between maps. Player. Okay. Within set input mode, we retrieve the player's slate operations and pass them into a function called, where were we? Player controller in, oh no, we've lost it. Go back until we get to where we were. This. And we pass in the game viewport client as well, which is from the world. So this is like client only, I'd imagine, right? We're talking about input, right? The server doesn't care about inputs. Apply input mode. This is on a input mode data bit. Along with a game viewport client. I've never seen that before as well. What's in a viewport client? What sort of information do we store in here? I guess the viewport here maybe is about if you had split screen, you have one viewport, but you may have multiple players. Okay, we're not going to go too deep into this because I don't think it's massively important for what we're looking at, but okay. So we call this, now let's have a look. So we're going to have one for UI only game. Let's start with UI, shall we? So each derivative, so this is going to be game, UI, game and UI, will have has its own apply input mode implementation. So like these notes are overkill, but it's more for me to try and cement my learning a bit by writing notes about it. It allows me to stop and make sure I've understood what I've looked at. And then I can condense them to just include the important stuff at a later stage. So what does it do in here then? We get the game viewport widget. It's just going to return a viewport. Good morning. Hello there, Fire Dark Matter. How you doing? 3:30 for me? But you're 8 hours or so, aren't you? So Yeah, slightly different time for you. Is it 7 a.m.? 7:30? 2:20 a.m. How's what? I thought you were 8 hours West Coast. Oh, why did you write 2:30 a.m.? Why did you confuse me like that, Fyro? I got it correct. How dare you? I mean, 2's not near to 7, not even on the numpad, you silly boy. Yeah, you get some beverage, good sir. Okay, so it gets the viewport. We don't quite really know what that is, but it's okay for now. This is semi-interesting, but it goes a bit beyond what we're trying to look at. We're not looking at UI, but we just want to understand what happens to the input stack when we give control to either of these. Lock always, lock mouse to viewport. Well, it's true or false based on if it's set to that, I guess. And then we set focus and locking. Does this do anything interesting? Slate operations. Okay, so it'll change. Can change a bunch of stuff. Of the slate operations object. That's one thing it does. And then, and also the game viewport client. Yeah, that seems to be all it does though, right? If we go back further, will it no longer, yeah, I don't see anything in here that is stopping it from receiving inputs. No is the answer. The first one is definitely not. The second one isn't going to be as well. I'm okay for people to work on them, but I don't wish for it to be a product that multiple people have on their streams. I'm not trying to make a product to sell. I've seen Stream Raiders. I'm not very excited by it. I prefer having my own individual thing that sets the tone of my stream rather than me just running some third-party software on it, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my intent. It's always been my intent not to make a product out of it, more of just making it more of something that's bespoke for my channel. Oh yeah, by all means. There's nothing stopping you, dude. There's nothing stopping you. I took inspiration from someone else when starting AHA1. By all means, you can do as you want. I don't own any copyright over anything. I'd appreciate if you try and what I did. So the original game that I looked at was a game on Windy Beard's channel where there was a bunch of blocks at the bottom of the screen, and he had a game called Geo, which was out where you drill through these blocks. So he made a stream little version of that game where it would drill through those blocks. It'd choose someone from chat, and then they would drill through the blocks, and they would go ahead and have gold in them essentially. But you'd only have a set amount of fuel to get through this. You wouldn't always get through there. But other people could pay money. You'd get money from that, and you could pay money in order to summon a worm, which was an enemy from his game, which would go and eat the person. That was pretty much it. And then every so often there'd be an exhibition where you could not exhibition, maybe that's not the right word here, but there'd be like an excursion where you could sign up. There was we're going on a mining mission. You can sign up to it, and then there's a chance you can invest how much you want to go on it. So I'm going to invest 1,000 gold into this, and then when you get to, everyone signs up for it, and then when you get there, it will mine an amount, and you'll get a percentage of that back. Sometimes you'll make a little loss, but often you'd make a bonus. But sometimes you would crash on the way there. It would just say in text, you wouldn't see anything. It would just say, oh no, it failed, and everyone would lose their money. So you can see like those elements are kind of similar to what I took, but I didn't make a space game. I didn't make it the same thing. I kind of applied it to a genre, an idea that I already thought of which was the kind of RPG element of it. So instead of going through and collecting gold in a way, you're going through trying to kill all the monsters in a dungeon. And then if you look at what I did, and on top of that as well, I like the fame, having a kingdom, becoming king, unlocking like different outfits for your characters based on finding items in the dungeon. Quests, they're similar to the excursions, but it's not about like increasing your current money. It's more about coming together to defend a kingdom so they don't lose fame. So you can see it's not so much like I just try copying it. It was definitely inspired by. So what the advice I give to other people is, be inspired. Don't reskin, because that's a bit of a shit thing to do. Of course you do. They all start with Dan, Jaboko. Yeah, see, he did do like a pachinko sort of game as well. Yeah, he's done quite a few of them, Windy has. But I try and give credit to Windy often because, like, my game indeed, definitely, I probably wouldn't have had the idea. I'd recommend using Unity though, if you're going to use a game engine. But you could always use something. You could, if you're more confident with web development, you could do something in JavaScript, and have it display on a web page and render that over your stream and stuff as well. Plenty of options for you, as long as you can access the Twitch API and use it to connect an account to the channel to observe what happens in the chat. You can also do cool things these days with extensions. And extensions will allow you could have your game controlled via an extension as well. Anyway. Okay, so I'm interested. This setup input mode, it doesn't really seem to do anything dangerous. So we've looked into this apply input mode. We looked at the UI one. Let's look at game and UI. So what does game and UI do differently? Oh, you can, hang on. Okay, we'll have to think of something, and if only I do it. I use UE4. I'm using UE4 for AHA2. The reason I say it is because out of the box, you could make some less demanding 2D games in Unity. And also there is a bit of a support community. I've written a guide even about how you could get started doing stuff. And there's already some C# libraries called TwitchLib to communicate with the Twitch API, which is maintained already by other people. So that's why I'd say I'd recommend it. And I've done it and I know that it works, whereas there's still some uncertainties with Unreal, which I'm about to find out when I get to the MVP of AHA2. But there will be C++ like libraries, I'm sure, that you can use for like WebSockets and stuff like that, right? So I'm sure it's very viable. Well, I mean, it is viable. We're doing it. Yeah, if you haven't already have a UE4 kind of affiliation, then yeah, go for it. I only recommended Unity just because I thought it was a bit, if you have no affiliation already, it's a bit more friendly, perhaps. Oh, interesting. These are actually all defined in the player controller. I always get confused when they define different classes within the same file. So this is in player controller CPP, but within its own class. Yeah, it depends on the blue. If you're happy to just work in Blueprint as well, then I've seen it before. There is a Blueprint API thing out there as well. I don't know if there's CPP, if there's like a native support for it as well. The only other thing to consider then is like, are those marketplace assets, are they going to be kept up to date? When Twitch change their API, like they do quite a lot, would it still work? Interesting, Jaboko. I did not know that. I did not know that. Okay, so we can see the difference between them easily, at least here. So input mode, this is UI only. What's the difference between these then? Same thing here, but there's a little bit more locked. That is the same, or we check. No, it has the same thing up here. I didn't even see that earlier. So it's the exact same thing. Maybe set focus and locking. No, that's... Yeah, that is going to be slightly different per one, I guess. That won't... They'll be the same. So the only thing that's different between them, game port only, is we don't take this. We do our slate operation stuff in there. I think user focus, lock to mouse, high precision movement. Are they what's actually in here anyway? Yeah, they are. So we do those manually. Okay, so there's really not much difference about them. The only thing that would be different is the set focus and locking. Oh, it's part of the base. No, it's the same. Okay, that's really confusing then. So there's very little difference between them. Its own implementation, though, pretty much the same. What we link in there gets oh yeah, this. You can see the updated. It's been over 2 years since I updated this. Why is there a random bullet point here? How did I not notice that before? But yeah, I did a bit of an overview thing in here before, but some of it is out of date these days. Do they have? I've got a. I'm on this server. I just need to find it. You go Twitch API. This one. And you get a copy link to the server. You can invite friends. Never expire. Generate a new link. Copy. Okay, we can just drop it in here. Okay, good. Sorry, we have had quite a few people pop in saying there's issues with it, and I thought I might as well write that while we've got a chance to do it. My command for that in future, Jaboko, is DIY, if I remember. Do it yourself. Anyway, thank you for the reminder. But yeah, that gives a bit of insight into the way I did it for the C# and Unity implementation. All right. So I'm confused then. I mean, maybe we should just try this out. we set input mode to UI only, does this stuff still work? Oh, hang on. Set input mode UI only expects a valid player controller. Okay, let's fix that up. Play controller. We are currently in here, so we'll just have to get first play. Get player controller. Yeah, that one should do the job for us, I think. Okay, so now, yeah, can you see? 1, 2, 3 does not work. So it is blocking the input somehow, and we need to know how, and how if we can work around it, or whether we just need to be aware of it. Set in the input mode to UI only will block, mean the current controller's input stack no longer works. Why? We don't know. We don't know why. Let's stop and let's try and set input mode to game. I'd imagine game would work, right? We disconnect this and chuck in the same player controller. That'd be fine. And we will try out the both of them as well. Game and UI in a short moment. Disconnect this and get this whacked into there as well. Okay, so we'll start with game mode. This should work. Let's just make sure this is our base condition here, right? Yeah, this still works. Now if we connect to this one, we tried this one before. It doesn't work. Just double check. Doesn't work. And then if we try this one, I'm trying to find the bit that takes control of it. It doesn't really seem to, it's not obvious to me. It could be something to do with slate. I think that's what someone in work told me before, actually. That slate has its own kind of thing going on. We need to try and figure out how that works. Let's press play on this then and see the result. Okay. So it works with the game and UI, but UI does not allow it. Game or game and UI will still work. So I don't know how it's rooted because we haven't seen anything. So we'll have a bit of a Google first before we go into this blindly and just say set game input to UI only. And what is the issue here? Prevents player controller input stack. I mean, this is not good. Oh, is that Freezer Nick who's in chat? Freezer Nick, have I stumbled upon one of your Unreal Engine replies if you're still in chat? I was just going to say, I recognize this name. But yeah, the solution here of you're not allowed to pause if you're still moving. It feels a bit of a workaround. Does that actually work? Or is that just an image? It is. That's nice that they, I guess that's a good idea. Well, we don't want to flush inputs. This isn't actually our problem. Our this might be more relevant. Button. Move the old pause menu. Definitely not to do with toilets, Jaboko. Is to let the play controller be the manager of the input, and the input event bindings are in the play controller, nowhere else. Can then have an array of widgets to view. This way I can decide pressing escape to do. Reinventing the wheel here, the U input component, something called input stack of the play controller, which I haven't used at all. My money documentation shows an example about this either. Okay, this is cool because it makes me feel glad that we actually looked into the code, right? Because it gives us a bit of input here. Input mode, the play controller, there's a function called set input mode that can be used to determine where the input goes. So when your UI becomes active, you want to call set input mode to that. But yeah, how does it work though? And we'll have a look at the code again in a sec, but we've looked once and I couldn't see it. Input UE is funneled to Slate and UMG, or the game, or both. Yeah, that's the bit we don't quite know where that happens. The input mode is what controls what spigot? I mean, which of those is opener? The input stack is in the player controller is a collection of U input components that manage it. This is a good answer, by the way, by this person. On the game side only. The Slate UMG side is much more complex and annoying. And since the Slate UMG doesn't have a built-in stack of sorts, you basically have to manage it yourself or be regimented. I think a colleague of mine knew a little about this. I might just pop a quick question. Okay, I've asked a question to see if my colleague knows the answer to it. We'll keep having a little look around in the meantime. Hello there, Catiest. How are you doing today? You see, this thread seemed interesting so far, so we'll keep reading through it anyway. Yes, the input components are mainly for input actions like press a specific key or an axis, but the UI deals a lot with mouse input, so maybe it needs some separate management, maybe. After I set input mode to UI only, the characters in-game stop handling mouse click input. However, they still react to mouse over input, which is strange and not ideal. Hello, Natalo. What a time to come in when we're talking about mice. Typical. Yeah, as a stream is going fine. Thank you very much. We're just so I'm doing on Sundays. I try and do a monthly game dev challenge, which is where I choose a theme for the month and try and research it. And sometimes that'll result in me like trying to actually apply it and create something from it. So this month we are looking at, this is what I want, a mini game input system. So an input system that allows to track the input of a player via like keystroke driven games. So that would be things like typing games or like mini games like WarioWare where it says press these keys quickly, those sort of things. And that has started off over the last few weeks through us looking understanding the current input system in Unreal. And we're just looking into, so first off today we want to know, can we update the priority of actors? I won't go into the whole detail, but essentially if we have 3 actors that can have input in the scene, the latest one to be added will have the priority over receiving the input. Can we change it to be this person to have the, or this actor to have the priority, so the input gets tunneled through them first? And yeah, we found a way to do that, which is good. And we're now trying to have a look how this set input mode affects things. And I'm a little bit, not lost, but unsure where to find it, but and my colleague just responded saying, you won't find the funneling part. I basically said, I've not found the bit where the inputs are funneled off to either the player controller or slate. New widget, override the on key pressed function. Your inputs are being routed. That function will be hit. Ah, okay, okay. So I think what my colleague is recommending is, you know, the widgets that we've done. So we made, actually we haven't made a new widget. Okay, well, hold on. We can just go to user widget. I don't know if there actually is a widget on the screen at this point though. But is there a function in here called on key pressed? We could do this on key down, which is a blueprint implementable event. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But we can see where it comes from, I guess. And this should give us a call stack is what we're hoping. Don't know if we have a user widget for this to actually work though. Don't think we're going to hit a breakpoint because we don't have a widget to handle that, and you might need to bind it. We could make a very quick widget and add it to the scene, I guess, maybe. Have a look at this. Let's just add some text so that we know that it actually exists. Okay. There we go, fantastic. They enjoy being a test widget. Anchor that to the middle. Right, so if we then, I'm trying to remember where we go ahead and do that. So is it a spawn widget? Oh, I can't remember. Would it be in the HUD? I've done this in my other project. I'm trying to remember how we... there's like a two-step add to viewport. I think we must be in the HUD class, maybe? Let me have a quick look. Oh, I just spelled viewport wrong. Have a look where this is. I've forgotten. On the widget itself, you can do it. I can't believe I've forgotten this. Wait there, I might have written it in my notes somewhere. Do we have UI? Create widget and add. Ah, thank you, thank you. Can you do that from anywhere? Ah, thank you. Let's do that, and then let's do. Perfect. Yeah, add to viewport is from widget. That was the step I was missing there. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so let's make one of those. Let's start. Oh, doesn't like that. Target must have a connection. Oh. Like so. Okay, so we will press play. Okay, the widget is here. That's a shame. So we tried binding to There should be a breakpoint in here, yeah, down here. We tried doing it on native key down, but maybe what other functions we got in here? Yeah. I'm not really hitting these. But it could be because our widgets. Hold on, it could also be that we're not. It could be because the input is not set as we expect. Hold on, we're there. Oh no, we are doing it to UI. Let's try do it to UI only anyway, but that shouldn't make a difference. I mean, we could actually focus on this widget just in case that makes a difference. Yeah, no. Yeah, what we're hoping is when we press a key down that we would hit the function. Give me just a moment. Hello, Littlewood. How good to see you. We may, I don't know whether we'd need to set up something in here. If we do a key down in here. On key down, is there? Or do you have a tick in here? Just look at the functions available to us within the widget for input. So the overall thing, what if anyone's wondering why I'm looking into this, I'm trying to find like how the logic gets when you select UI only. Why does it not go via the player controller? Like there's a bit somewhere that is funneling the input, the actual physical inputs into our game system, and it gets passed to. Oh, we might be able to do it the other way. Okay, how about we do it the other way? Well, we'll leave this here because it's not hitting at all. It's not causing any bloody harm at the moment. How about we stop this and we set this to both. Let's go to there. And when we get the input on our... Oh no, we're not going to hit it, are we? Sorry, what I was trying to think is could we hit it on the player controller, but instead the player input component, I think is called this thing. We do a thing where we collect the inputs, which is in here. We went through before, I'm pretty sure. What's it called? Process input stack. Yeah. So I think by the time we call that, we can query our inputs, but I don't know. Maybe we should try and find where we find the key. Key state, event counts. So how does this thing get set? Finding keys, do we ever add to it? Do you want to know what keyboard I've got? I think it's the G413 I've got, which is this. Uh-oh, I've just pulled my cable so my screens might flicker. But it's quite the keys don't go into the keyboard, it's just got like a nice metal plate underneath it. But yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah, so because it's an LG1, it's... What's they call them again? is it Roma Gs, I think, is their own keycap type rather than like blue, brown, or reds. But it is mechanical, but yeah. Can't think what they I don't know what they compare to in terms of the colours. But not blue, I know that much for sure. Where is this key state map? Updated. Find. Basically, we're looking through there a lot. We are finding and finding. I want to find. Okay, and up here we are flushing key presses. Where are we here? Flush key presses still. I'm wondering, like, when does it add? Find or add? Input motion. Put touch. Okay, input key here. So what does input key? Where does this come from? Should we try and see whether we hit a breakpoint on this? Oh, we did. Hold on, let me F5 that a sec. Oh, it did it for mouse click as well. Okay, so every click is doing it. If I press like any key is picking it up now. I thought it was only things that are bound. But it doesn't seem to be that way. Okay, here, so the key that we've had in, we can't debug. I need to get hold of the bloody debug symbols. I should do that soon because we are looking through this sort of stuff. Alright, where did it come from though? That's what we were interested in here. Game Viewport client. Maybe it's that. It did touch, if we remember, when we were doing our notes on this, right? We did mention the Game Viewport client. So we got a lead, it could be that. What function are we in? Input key here. I wonder if this gets hit. Let's have a look at our call stack here in a sec then. So it goes by the player controller, then it goes to player input, that's fine. On key down is the scene viewport. And this returns an F reply. Let's just make some notes of the call stack here. So we had that. Before that we had ourselves this. Which eventually led up to the player controller one, right? We can pin this so I can see it. I appreciate the call stack is probably small and covered at the moment. But it goes through to this, and then we followed this before. Okay, let's whack that in there. Okay, and then before that, you see it's coming from slate. On key down. That's was I on the wrong one when I put the Okay, so it comes from quite right. Windows application here. We're processing our keys coming down, and then we have our on key down. Process key event. So this is within Slate application. So it seems like it always comes via Slate. I'm guessing. Let's Continue. Let's stop a sec. Oh, we're going to get every input. It's going to... Okay, what we set? Are we at okay, and UI. How does the call stack differ if we just go via this? Do we get the same? Kind of. I think it might be a little bit different, but yeah. Oh no, that could just be because we clicked instead of. So let's just do the same as last time. Yeah, this is more similar. Route along focus path. This looks potential. So there's a routing policy, which will probably have we got anything on that routing policy? Don't know what this is. It just takes me here when I... But what is the... I guess what if you call it with its... Okay. Because it's a templated function, we don't know. Good afternoon. James, is your game jam still going? Good, sir. Okay, so then we'll route it. It doesn't really... What does the route function do? We get the routing path. So is it process reply? Could be that. Jump into that. Oh, these are empty. But are these if you pass in no reply, cursor reply? Pointer, keyboard. Ah, wonderful. I saw your theme. Wasn't it "You Are Great" or something really positive like that? Damn you, James. You being so positive and lovely. Okay, so interestingly, we do... Trying to work out the signature differences between these. No reply and cursor reply, we don't do anything, I guess. But otherwise, I think we do a process reply. Application. What have you got in mind for it? Are you making a game as well, I assume? Then it goes to slate. On key down or process key down. We went to root. And then that took us into this horrid function. Process key down event. So it seems like the keys all go via slate in the first place. Olympic style game thing with silly games. Wonderful. Well, I'm trying to work at the moment, Games with James, on understanding the input system in Unreal a bit more, so I can try and make silly input games for such things. Like you remember the game you made before where you pull out a little handheld console out of the drawer and each has a little mini game on it, just where keyboard inputs are the kind of way that you control the game. Or typing games where you have to write things out to attack people or whatever. So we're doing a bit of research to try and understand how it works a bit more. Uno, of course. Of course. Have you got lots of people from Udemy in that taking part? Combat typing. That's the sort of stuff we're talking about. With that said, we're going to be wrapping up in around 20 minutes as well because we're coming up to the 3-hour mark. The input learning is going good though. It's been nice and non-stressful because I have been ambitious with like, oh, I need to get this done by the end of the month. we've pretty much had 3 streams where we're going through like engine code and trying to see what is happening. So at the moment I pretty much understand how it works when you're in game, but what happens in Unreal is a slightly different layer of things. Of when you bring up the UI, you can set the input mode to either UI game or UI and game. And essentially, if you set it to UI, it will stop any of your game inputs from receiving. The inputs don't get down to that layer to be processed. So any bindings you've made to particular keys won't be picked up. So I'm just trying to understand where it does that, just in case we ever need, well, because I think it's interesting to know as well. So at which point does it get to, what we care about here is this scene. It seems to, we call on key down here, which then goes to the scene port, right? I want to know, like, when does it stop that from happening? Ah, here. Target, I think it would be this. Route to subsystems that care. Yeah. Sorry, I was asking a work colleague about it, so I'm just like reporting back what I found as well. So if not resolved, Viewport console, input key controller. I have no idea what that bool is. The Viewport's console. Does that mean like a console, like console command sort of console? It might do. Oh crikey, so if the console is open, then it will write that input key into the console instead? So that you can do stuff with the console open? I'm not 100%. Anyway, let's pretend that doesn't matter for now and just focus on this. So from our game engine, we get our local player. And we would input key here. Viewport is always considered to have responsive mouse buttons to avoid throttling. There doesn't seem to be a branch here. Right, we're not seeing it say don't do it. I guess we'd only not do it if I'm wondering if this gets hit. So can we continue? Get rid of this input key here. And then let's press 2. So we get to this bit. So let's turn this off and let's go back in to set it to UI only. It doesn't get to this bit. So it's getting routed before here. So I just need to make sure we're definitely not hitting that. If I go to my output log here. Hold on. Error, input mode UI only, attempting to focus on non-focusable widget. Okay, let's stop. Yeah, it's not focusable. Let's just get rid of that in case that was causing any issues. No. Okay. So that would imply that we need to go further up that call stack to get to where it branches. Yeah, so let's use a key press instead of a mouse click. I don't want to look up mouse clicks for now. I feel like being lazy and like putting just a little breakpoint further up. Let's chuck one here, shall we? It could be that it's just not. No. Let's go back into here. Set it back. Yeah. File save. Okay, yeah, we did get it this time. We are getting this. So where would we go next? Gone into on key down. The key is valid. We add it to our key state map. We input, then we do it via this input key on the Viewport game client. Now, didn't we try stopping here last time? So subsystems, oh, maybe it returns early. Ignore input. Ah. Okay. I think we may have found it. It returns. Ah, yes. Okay. Just jotting some notes down, as I said. This is the key kind of bit then, I guess, right? That is controlling. Let's go into here. Game Viewport client was our lead, and it was that we ended up doing it. And we'll early out if, what was it called? Ignore input is set to true. This will stop it getting to, where does it end up going down? This sort of logic, right? That passes input onto the player controller. Like that. Okay. So I guess the next step is to work out how does that get set. So ignore input is on the Game Viewport client, this set ignore input. When does that get set then? In the player controller, it actually does some. Don't know what Magic Leap HMD is, but we're going to ignore that. That seems like a specific plugin. Game Viewport client. That's just the definition. So it's only in the player controller we do it. Apply. Oh my gosh. We've looked at this bloody line. This was the difference between them. Do you remember I said it looks exactly... Oh, that's flipping irritating. I was looking at the right bit. I remember we looked at these three. They're the same apart from this. Hmm. Uh, okay, that's good. I'm really glad that we got to the bottom of it though, and that I'm able to traverse through this engine code and make some sense out of it. You're right, Uno Maestro. True does not equal false. Okay, so that means we can correct. I've even written it down to prove that I'm not BSing, pretending here. We said they're all pretty much the same. This bit here, apart from in the UI only, it sets set ignore input to be true. This in turn will be responsible for stopping the inputs being sent forward to the player controller within the, what function was it again? Wasn't it the input key? Game Viewport client input key function. And then we're still talking about this apply mode also may change a bunch of properties of the slate object along with other settings. Okay, good. How are you doing, Corpsey boy? Oh, you got a new little, got yourself a little heart. I'm used to the thumbs up, dude. I've not seen that before, though. Isn't that nice? Join the Heart Club, good sir. Feel free to show off your emotes. I'm happily cast my eyes upon them. That's a nice one, too. Oh, look at the penguin. The penguin one is great. That's great detail for something with a lot going on in it. The eyebrows are good on the wave as well. Oh, it's a coffee. The penguins on the coffee. I don't know. The RSPCA would be happy about that, wouldn't they? Have you got a link to your game jam, James, by the way? I'm happy to drop it in chat. Anyone who does know James is a wonderful Unity developer, but he focuses a lot on learning and teaching and has a bunch of Udemy courses and YouTube videos out there to help people get into not Unreal, but Unity, which is a C# based game engine. He's who I learned game dev from initially, actually, before knowing him, a bunch of YouTube videos, and then I found him on Twitch, and then I hassled him. And now we are pals. But yeah, if you're interested in a game jam, it's a week-long game jam. So it started a few days ago, I think, or recently. But it's going on for another week. And you'll be able to find it at that link there. It looks a little bit like that. 266. Do you know, I was really happy. I got 29 entries to mine. Well, but joined isn't always the same as entries, in fairness. But still, I'm very impressed, dude. You've grown a great community around your content. It would be you're right, actually. The protection of birds would be the ones who would care about the penguin coffee abuse that Corpse is enforcing. Do you even let it cool down before you force the little penguin to drink it, Corpse? It's used to cold climates. So, Nitin Kumar, how are you doing? Long time, not a Twitch regular. What's the challenge thing? So the challenge is, I've done a bunch of them now. It might be helpful if I just show you on my Twitch channel. I gotta pause before you hear my voice back twice. It's a bit hard to find normally. But essentially, if you click on the banner for my name, it will then take you to videos. And if you go into the videos tab, and then within the videos tab, I think you can find collections. And if you go into the collections, it's like one of those kid stories where it just keeps on and going and going. You'll see that I've actually got a bunch of collections. You can't see them all here. How do you see all the collections? It's so dumb. I mean, what happens if I do this in a new browser? How does it look if I'm not me logged in? Okay, collections. Can we view all collections? No, but it does let you scroll through them all, I think. Yeah, you can keep scrolling through all of them. So I do a new challenge every month. I didn't do them November, December, or December, January, sorry. But we're back at it this month. Where basically I choose something, an area in Unreal that I want to learn more about or try and do. So the first one was making a character. So designing it, making a model, rigging it, and bringing it into Unreal. Then we learned about particle systems. We learned about materials and shaders, and we ended up doing some like water effects. And I've done highlights of each of these sessions, so people can watch them back, or I can watch them back to learn again. We did one on AI and behavior trees, where we learned about how they work in general. They're kind of overviews. They're nothing too deep, but it's a good little kind of giving myself like 4 sessions to kind of get into a topic. So every Sunday we'll go and have a look at it. So we did some on user interface. We did some on lighting. We did some on collision and tracing. And this one is the 8th one that we've done now. And so this one is on about input. And I'm trying to learn. Give myself a little brief. And the brief is this document where I'm actually writing all my notes when I'm learning about it. But I wanted to make like a minigame input system, a keyboard input system, where it'll allow me to have a game where it'll pop up and say, oh, you need to press this key 5 times, and it'll track what you press and handle it once you've done it. And you can give it rules whether, okay, if you mess it up, does that mean you have to start over or whatever? Or maybe some typing games where you have to write out a sentence and it tracks how many mistakes you make, for example. So I'm trying to learn about the input system in Unreal first, so then I can design with good knowledge what would be a nice way to work in conjunction with the existing Unreal input system in order to make something that I can facilitate then in future game jams or projects of my own. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a summary anyway. We just do a few hours a week. We're just coming up to the 3-hour mark, so I'm going to be wrapping up stream quite shortly. But yeah, somewhat. I work like 9 to 5, or not 9 to 5, but I work a normal day job of game dev at the moment. And yeah, because I'm working on a large project where I'm just one of many, many devs, it kind of means that you don't really get to explore a lot of this. If I get a task given to me like for example, at the moment, one of the tasks I'm working on, I need to drive a value in a particle system and on a material when something happens game side logic. So I have a little bit there where I need to expose stuff out so that the tech artists and the VFX artists can take data from code and make it drive how things look. But I don't often get to like learn about the actual systems. I normally just do the code side of things. And unless my tasks happen to involve some of these areas, then I won't really learn about them or stay fresh. The other thing I'll say is like the company I work for, we co-develop with a large studio on a large game, and what that means is there's a massive code base and they have their own systems. So they've kind of done their own input system on top of Unreal system. So it means when I'm doing stuff to do with input in my day job, I don't actually learn about just the Unreal stuff. I need to learn their own system. And so that kind of impacts my own learning of general Unreal stuff. So I'm not telling you, Uno, you know I don't talk about it. You ask me every time. Silly boy. Silly boy. Maybe one day I'll tell you. Maybe. We'll make this year's charity goal. If we get to a new goal, I'll tell you what I work on. There we go. Done. So secret. I know, James Bond. But okay, I just want to finish hello microphone. I want to write down what I've learned just before we finish, and then next week we'll be designing an actual system that we can use, I think. Yeah, there's some elements you can Catius, but it's something I don't publicly associate myself with what I work on and the company that I'm employed at as well. I'm very proud of both of those things, but I don't want to have to worry about me saying, oh, I think this person's a dick. And I don't want that to then be like, oh, someone could try and get me in trouble by sharing that with my client or my employer, and essentially I don't want to have to care about my stream stuff with work. So yeah, that's why I ask people to try and respect my privacy a bit with it. But yeah, indeed, Catist. It's not the biggest mystery to fall on humankind. No, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, so we do know a little bit about this now, and we're going to finish our input about this, notes about this. Actually, no, we did write it. I just realized. So we'd have to just have a quick peep at, it's the set ignore input which is handling it. So if we go back to, it was this, wasn't it, in here. Otherwise it goes through, it gets the number of local players. So that's if you're playing split screen or something. Okay, interesting. And then this is where the routing to subsystems. Lovely. Oh, this is what the commands, I guess this is the console might be, right? In the fact that you might want to, if they've got the console up, you don't want the input to consume the input. Yeah, that's a fair point. So what I mean by console, if that's not clear at the moment, we're talking, oh, I'm still mid debug at the moment. Let me turn that off. So when I bring up the console, we don't want it to block this stuff off, right? So we need that to kind of override it. Okay. That is cool. Not a problem. Not a problem. Honestly, it's no problem. Okay, I think I've done all the notes that I wanted here. We started to do a bit of a stack trace down, didn't we? So we might I might do that one last time to just get a bit more information down there so we don't have to do this experiment again. At this point, if we go to our call stack, before on key down in slate viewport. Actually, no, we ended up going down and down after this, didn't we? Yes, I've gone to the wrong place. Let's go down into this. Input key. This is where we want to hit an input instead, right? Yeah, so I know it's tiny, but we can just go ahead and this will give us a little summary of the input stack. I also want to get rid of these being bullet points before I paste in a picture. Cool, that gives us an idea. All right, sweet. So I'm quite happy that we've understood that, whether or not we would want to work in conjunction with them. But I think understanding where that branch is gives us that chance to debug issues or design things in a way where we now know how it's going to behave. So I think that's a positive thing. So what I'd like to do next stream, and that should be next Sunday, would be to, let's go through it. We want to go ahead and design a system where we can add actors with parameters to create an input consuming actor that will be destroyed once the correct set of inputs have been input by the player. And this is going to have a bunch of parameters that we give it, such as what is the desired input? If someone messes up, do they go back to the start? Is there a certain amount of fail attempts before it's game over, before it fires a failed event? Those sort of things. And then it should create something, and then it should process those inputs. We should get some feedback. It'll probably just be via the console or by the log for now that we've done it correctly. And that it should fire an on-complete event, which again, we'll just probably say something in the console for now. The idea then is that you can hook into these events. So if I'm in my game code elsewhere, well, I walk up, say I'm running around the world, I walk up to a tree. The tree, when we interact with it, spawns an actor, tree interaction, mini game, whatever we want to call it. That adds itself to the input stack. On begin happens and it'll do a bunch of logic. Maybe it'll do some UI stuff. It'll then wait only for those inputs. And then we can do on correct input. What do we want to do? We can maybe do some form of functionality there. On incorrect input, what do we want to do? And then when it finishes, we might have an event effectively that we can bind to. So if you think about it, when I interact with that tree, what I'd want to do is say interact with it, call the on begin, but also get its finished event, bind to it, and then the rest of my logic can flow on once I have that finished event come through. So we're trying to think how this can kind of fit into, be used more generically, more modularly, if that's a word. That'd be interesting to me if we can get something along those lines working. But okay, we have gone over 3 hours, and I have other things I need to do on my Sunday today. So we're going to wrap up here. I appreciate people being here. Nice to see some new faces. Nice to have some old faces. And nice to have Uno Maestro here as well.